G20, or known as T20, gathers world thinkers, policymakers, and experts to discuss research-based policy recommendations and to discuss the issues on global importance. And they gather here, right here at Nusa Dua, Bali, from 5th of September up to 6th of September. But what are the policy recommendations that have been gathered at T20 Summit? To answer that question, we will talk with the one and only, the lead co-chairs of T20 Indonesia, Mr. Bambang Brojonegoro. Thank you so much, sir, for your time and for the opportunity. So could you explain what is the goal of T20 and what are the recommendations that will be delivered to G20 presidency?
Yeah, certainly T20 is a so-called idea bank for the G20. Of course, G20 has its own mechanism in which both Finance Track and Sherpa Track have their own so-called working group. And every working group, of course, it will be supported by some experts. But of course, they are still represent the government view, meaning that T20 will supplement what government side has been doing by providing an independent and non-biased opinion and also recommendation in order, of course, to improve, not only to improve the communique of the G20 leaders, but of course, to improve the global economy itself. And from the T20 Indonesia, of course, we are in the difficult period today because not only we just recover from pandemic, but unfortunately from the recovery process itself, there has been high inflation that happens everywhere in the world. And that becomes the big challenge when it comes to the recovery period itself. And then it has been worsened by the geopolitical tension between Russia and Ukraine. So at the end of the day, of course, we are not in the ideal situation. So that's why the T20 Indonesia, in the conclusion of the recommendation, put the word cooperation on the top as an umbrella for all the recommendation that we will provide to the government. Why cooperation is at the top? Because we know that the pandemic itself could be handled, I think, quite well by most of the countries in the world, not only by their own efforts, but they do it because somehow they build some kind of cooperation, local cooperation, regional cooperation, as well as global cooperation. But the key word for handling the pandemic is cooperation. So now we are in the recovery period. Thanks to the cooperation during the pandemic, now we are in the recovery. But unfortunately, of course, there has been kind of gap between the spike of demand and the anticipation from the supply side. As a result, the price in general has been higher, creates high inflation. And then, of course, when it comes to the high inflation, the cooperation will be against needed. But of course, with this geopolitical tension, it will be hard to ensure that we have the same level of cooperation similar to what happened during the pandemic. While our challenge now, of course, it might be different, totally different with our challenge during the pandemic, but it won't be easy as well, because high inflation cannot be solved in one day or in 1 month. It has to be by concerted effort by everybody, by every economy to ensure, for example, open trade in order to reduce inflation. But then the geopolitical tension will create the constraint on this open trade. So as a result, the high inflation is still there, including in Indonesia.
Okay. But could you share a little bit on the recommendations that T20 will deliver on energy transition and also digital transformation?
Yeah, on the energy transition, I think our main message, we need just and fair energy transition. What is just and fair energy transition? Of course, energy transition is not just changing the primary energy from the fossil fuel into renewable or clean energy, but the transformation itself will need, for example, big financing to convert the source of primary energy. It will involve the economy in general because there will be a lot of new businesses, But at the same time, there will be loss of businesses because of this transformation. And for developing country especially, the issue of affordability of the energy price itself becomes the big question. Why? Because when you are doing the energy transition, you have to ensure the sustainability, the reliability, and affordability. For sustainability, yes, we already have the picture because we know what kind of primary energy that we have to pursue, renewable and clean, as a substitution for the fossil fuel. For reliability, yes, you can design, for example, new transmission system. You might create, let's say, the battery system in order to make sure reliability of renewable energy in the future. But when it comes to the affordability, I don't think many people have discussed a lot because unfortunately, most of the financing for energy transition happens in the advanced economy, in the developed economy. So why it has been successful over there? Because the people, the community in general, have their own purchasing power. They are able to pay any electricity price that they have to pay. Unlike in the developing countries in which affordability is still a big issue. That's why we still deal with, for example, energy subsidy. So in this case, of course, we are trying to promote just and fair to make sure that, number one, the private source of financing will also take a look into the potential in developing countries. And number two, when it comes to the financing itself, maybe we need lower cost of financing. And it could happen only if we do so-called catalytic or blended financing, meaning that we blending the source of financing not only from private capital, which has the relatively higher cost, combining with concessional capital coming from usually multilateral development banks, maybe also supported partly by our budget of no financing. And now we have to mobilize more the source from the philanthropic because there have been so many big philanthropic organizations that has been trying to be involved in the global agenda, including energy transition. And that they at least could provide some additional financing, which is zero cost of financing, that will make this blended financing for renewable energy or for energy transition will be much lower than what we have today in the market.
Before we talk about digital transformation, can we say that financing and funding is the biggest challenge on energy transition right now?
Yeah, I think not only financing and funding, of course, it always be a big case, especially for developing economies. But also we are talking about the availability of renewable energy itself, or the renewable primary energy, because unfortunately most of this primary renewable energy considered as variable renewable energy, like solar panel, like wind, yeah, and to some extent sometimes water, especially the small scale. So their reliability depends on the climate issues, you know, and the only two left for renewable, only geothermal and then biomass. And geothermal, of course, I mean, we have plenty of that, but it's not everywhere in Indonesia. It's only concentrated in, for example, in Sumatra, in Java, in Flores, and also in Sulawesi. And of course, with that concentration of source of geothermal, it will be challenging to make sure that geothermal power plant could be the base load for this variable renewable energy. Another potential one, biomass, but usually smaller one, and mostly for off-grid. And of course, last but not least, the big hydropower plant. But you know the challenge with hydropower plant because you need to build a big dam and you have to relocate people. There will be social issues, environmental issues, so there are so many complications. So in this case, of course, we have to make sure that the issue of the pricing should also include the reliability. Make sure that we will get consistent supply, consistent and enough supply of electricity, while at the same time, people have affordability to pay, you know, that electricity. Yeah.
Okay, now we are going to talk about the digital transformation.
Yeah.
We know that one of the key priorities on G20 is the digital transformation,
Yeah.
sir. And we know that Indonesian government is currently having a battle in keeping the data privacy of the
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah.
So how do you see the T20 policy recommendations could be implemented in the digital transformation, but also guarding the privacy of the data?
Yeah, I think in our digital track in the T20, there are two big issues that have been discussed so far in this year. Number one is how to reduce digital divide. Because, for example, in Indonesia, the digital divide varies from the availability of physical infrastructure up to the capability of the users. So for countries like Indonesia, certainly number one priority to reduce digital divide is to make sure infrastructure will reach all the last miles, for good internet and broadband connection. But then for some other countries, the issue will be more on the capability of the users. So even countries like US, for example, they are still struggling between people who not only capable of using it, but they own basically. They set up the companies that dominating the digital business against the people who basically do not know anything or do not care about the digital technology. So as a result, of course, digital divide will create some kind of inequality. We don't want digital divide to create new inequality. I mean, the old income inequality is already complicated enough, to be solved. And now we have to face with the potential new type of income inequality coming from digital divide. So this is the issue number one. The number two is governance, digital or basically data governance. I think this has been missing as a foundation, basic foundation when we are doing the digital transformation. Because once we are in the digital, once we are in the transformation process itself, sometimes we already move too fast. We already excited with the new technology, the increasing quality of connectivity from 4G to 5G, maybe to 6G. Sometimes we forget that there are basic things that left behind, which is the data governance, including privacy and security. I think these are the two topics that we are trying to promote, and basically the message is, globally, we are handling this digital governance issue and make sure every country will have its own protocol when it comes to the data governance. So don't let the market or don't let the operators to set up their own, governance. Otherwise, it will be chaos, because one standard that accepted in company A might not be accepted in company B. So it has to be nationwide, and it's better if it's global wide, because now with the digital, there is no border. There is no such thing called this is local connection and global connection.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bambang Brojonegoro, for an insightful discussion, and we are looking forward to what the T20 would able to contribute to the world. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so that's our short but very insightful discussion with the lead co-chairs of T20 Indonesia, Mr. Bambang Brojonegoro, and as he mentioned before, it's all about cooperation as we are entering this new phase of digital transformation, sustainable energy, and also improving our global health architecture. Rebecca Napitupulu, Dian Merdekawati for See Today.